Jaarlijks worden er wereldwijd ongeveer 250.000 kinderen geadopteerd. Maar wat gebeurt er als die kinderen op zoek gaan naar hun biologische familie als ze eenmaal volwassen zijn? Een hereniging is altijd een emotionele gebeurtenis. Daarbij kunnen onverwachte gevoelens ontstaan waardoor heel gewone mensen in een uiterst ongewone situatie terecht kunnen komen.
You ever been in love? That's what it's like. You can't stay away from the person. You want to talk to them every minute. You want to be with them every minute. And when you're not, it's very uncomfortable. You want to just be with that person all the time.
It's a different sort of love. It's a stronger love than just.
Well, it's certainly not a father-daughter love.
No, it's not a father-daughter love at all.
I did take to her. Immediately, you might say. But of course it dawned on me that this wasn't what you would call a natural feeling for a sister.
He's not my brother to me, and he never will be. We're not the only people living or feeling these things.
Well, it's been devastating. There's been so much loss and pain. It's been like a bad dream.
Goedenavond en welkom bij deze reportage over vrijwillige incest. Seks tussen twee familieleden waarbij er sprake is van liefde. Er komt geen dwang of misbruik aan te pas. Het heet genetische seksuele aantrekkingskracht. Het gaat hier overigens wel om familieleden die niet gezamenlijk zijn opgegroeid, die elkaar pas als volwassenen tegenkomen. Ze voelen dan vaak direct een klik en er is een enorme seksuele aantrekkingskracht. Ze herkennen zoveel, zowel lichamelijk als geestelijk, dat ze zomaar ineens hun soulmate hebben gevonden. Dan komt het voor dat ze binnen de kortste keren een verhouding hebben met hun broer, hun vader of hun dochter. Is dit incest of is het liefde? En wat als ze kinderen krijgen? Eén vrouw uit de documentaire heeft kinderen van haar vader. Ze heeft dus haar zusters gebaard. Vanavond vertellen incestueuze stellen over hun grote liefde en over hun strijd om door de buitenwereld te worden geaccepteerd. Janie Lloyd Lewis is zelf geadopteerd en adviseert al 16 jaar volwassenen die geadopteerd zijn. Toen ze jarenlang steeds weer mensen sprak die genetische seksuele aantrekkingskracht, oftewel GSA, ervoeren, besloot ze om een informatiepakket over het onderwerp samen te stellen. Janie is zelf ook niet onbekend met de sterke gevoelens die uit GSA kunnen voortkomen.
When I finally traced my birth mother, it was undeniably the most exciting, emotional, surreal and wonderful feeling I've ever had, before or since. That feeling of intense love and very sensual. Just the touch of her when we hugged, and I think more than anything else it was the smell. It just was familiar, even though I'd been separated from her since birth. It's not abnormal to have these feelings, but of course it is devastating when the boundaries are broken and both sides do develop into having a sexual relationship, because sadly they not only probably destroy any future relationship, but for those around them.
Ruth wordt geadopteerd als ze een baby is. 25 jaar later spoort ze zonder verdere hulp haar biologische vader op die in het buitenland woont. Ze heeft nog nooit van GSA gehoord.
When we first met at the airport, he had the video camera on to sort of film the moment that he set eyes on me. It was like coming home. It's like a piece of the jigsaw fitting in, and you kind of blend into each other, and it's very powerful, and it feels safe, it feels right.
Oh. Is that on?
Their voice, everything just
I just tuck him in.
resonates deeply within you. and you've never known anything like it, and you are completely unprepared, and you just want to fall into it. As soon as we met, within the first 24 hours, it was an instant recognition of something very deep, something I'd never known.
Just sit in your phone. You ready for some? Okay. Not bad.
Not bad.
Can I get anything else now?
Yeah, shall we?
Then we went on holiday, just the two of us, to get to know each other, to a hot country. And we videoed that as well. It's documentation of a love story, really. We didn't look alike, but there was a strong sense of unspoken connectedness that was so comforting and beautiful and effortless. We would sit for hours and just talk.
Look at me. Oh. What colour eyes do you call those then?
Oh, I don't know. Some people say they're hazel.
Some people say they're hazel, and what do people who know what they're talking about say?
Brown.
Say cut.
Cut.
We were completely blown away by these feelings and very aware that we shouldn't be feeling these feelings, and yet it didn't feel wrong, and it just felt so right being together and loving each other. We even felt that it couldn't actually possibly be true, that maybe my biological mother had got her dates wrong, or she lied about what boyfriend she'd had, and that maybe it would all turn out to be a horrible mistake and we wouldn't be related, and then we could be together forever. And we really hoped and prayed for that.
A toast to
What did I say before?
DNA.
DNA. To love. To me and you. To all your sweetest dreams. And to human cultural evolution. I love you.
It's been the most memorable experience of my life.
Na hun vakantie gaan Ruth en haar vader in het buitenland samenwonen. Hun relatie verdiept zich en ze hopen vurig dat ze geen vader en dochter zijn.
In the end, we thought we'd have to know definitively. So we had a DNA test. And unfortunately, that came back positive to being related. So that was like really hard. So we started thinking, making plans for me to leave and for us to split up. And the day before I was leaving him, I discovered that I was pregnant. So I left the next day pregnant, obviously full of all sorts of emotions and overwhelmed with the whole series of events, really. It was very hot. And I got back to England and felt my belly growing, and we agonised on the phone day after day about what we should do. Because we were apart now, the baby in my belly was kind of all I had of him. And something in me wanted to hold on to that, The separation was so hard. It's very difficult to be alone and pregnant and a long way from each other, so I went back and I was 6 months pregnant and I had the baby there with him.
Na 2 jaar zo als gezin geleefd te hebben, kan Ruth de enorme druk van het geheim niet langer aan. Ze gaat voorgoed terug naar Londen met hun zoon.
Yeah, he's a beautiful boy. He's just a lovely, normal, happy boy. When I say happy, I mean he is a happy boy, but he has had to endure, missing his dad and being brought up sort of, by me as a single mother. We told him when he was 9 and a half, he took it on board and he knows the whole story, and that's his life, that's his heritage, and he copes with it remarkably well.
Als de zoon van Ruth 13 is, vertrekt hij uit Londen om bij zijn vader in het buitenland te gaan wonen.
It's been like a bad dream, it's like stolen the joy in my life. There's been so much loss and pain. It's put a great strain on my relationship with my adoptive parents, because eventually I told them, and of course it's been very hard for them to deal with, because he was older, that he should have known better, and I was somehow a victim. But there is no victim in this situation. And of course it's against the law as things stand. So of course we've committed incest, which is a disgusting, heinous crime that, people spit at. Yeah, who have we harmed? We were both adults, consenting adults, and it was love. It wasn't sordid, sick stuff, it was love.
When I was 16, I was in high school and I got pregnant, and my family was not happy about it. And in 1952, this was just totally unheard of. So they decided that I would go to maternity home and hide out until the baby was born, and then I would give it up for adoption. When I first saw my son, when he came to the door that day, the first thing I said to him was, "Oh my God, you look just like your father." And that was striking to me. That was frightening. So we stayed up and talked till about 3 in the morning. And he was just trying to fill me in on his life. I was trying to fill him in on my life. And when he wanted to go home, I walked out to the car with him, and we spent another 2 hours standing by the car. As he was coming over, it was getting more and more like I felt like I was dating. Like I wanted to be with him and do things with him and go places with him and have him over. I would make excuses to get him to come over and have other people over, anything to get him to come over. I was very aware that I was feeling very attracted to him and feeling like this is totally insane. This is wrong. And then I went to my first American Adoption Congress conference. And there was a workshop there about reunions. And one of the girls there was talking about meeting her brother. And she said, wow, he was so cute. And if he had a motorcycle and I felt like I could jump on the back of that motorcycle, and I realized, this is my brother. And I'm really feeling very odd about my brother. It's some kind of genetic sexual attraction. And that's where I first heard those words, genetic sexual attraction.
De enige academische studie naar genetische seksuele aantrekkingskracht is in 1995 in Groot-Brittannië uitgevoerd door Dr. Maurice Greenberg. Het blijkt dat de familieleden die elkaar terugvinden geen normale familieband hebben. Gewoonlijk ontstaat zo'n band in de jeugd door aanraking en genegenheid. Bij de hereniging komt de behoefte aan zo'n band boven. In de helft van de gevallen manifesteert zich dat in sterke seksuele gevoelens. Joe Sol runt Adoption Crossroads in New York. Een hulpgroep die geadopteerde mensen begeleidt bij het hele proces van hereniging. Bij de sessies komt genetische seksuele aantrekkingskracht vaak ter sprake.
Something and I don't know what the right thing to say is, and then I want each of you to think, have you ever had any genetic attraction thoughts in your head? And I know it may be scary to say it, but if you can, it would probably help.
I've had feelings toward my brother.
Sexual feelings?
Yes.
I'm not surprised. I've never met anyone who willfully decided to have sex with their other. It's something that sneaked up on every single one that I've ever met. Did you know then she was your sister?
I know we have the same mother, but I think we have the same father. I mean, nothing ever happened, but it was a little confusing for both of us.
Do you remember having sexual feelings for her?
Yeah, some thoughts. Nothing ever happened or anything,
Yeah,
but
but-
just the thoughts were there, you know.
So you were attracted to her?
Yeah, she was a good-looking woman. It was, the whole thing was, it's confusing and it's fucked up, and it's just it just makes everything so much more difficult.
I was once asked by a very well-known psychiatrist why all adopted people are not schizophrenic, because the experience is crazy to be told that you have another mother and you're not allowed to think about her. Every therapist in the country ought to have Barb Gagno's book about forbidden love. But every adoption agency ought to have it and give it out to people, but they won't. That's the problem, because it says something nasty about adoption, and it says something nasty about adoption reunions.
This is where I do all my painting. This one I put on the cover of the book because I called this Adopted Child, because that's what it reminded me of, the fact that you can't tell that this child, if it's a boy or a girl or what race it is or what age it is, it's a child. And that's how adoptees are, because so many times they know so little about themselves. I've been involved in the adoption movement for over 33 years, and I was the head of Truth Seekers in Adoption. And I found my son and discovered I had some feelings that I didn't understand and didn't know about. I decided to get people educated on the subject because too many people were suffering from these feelings of genetic sexual attraction, not knowing what they were. And then I decided it was time to write a book about it. I was getting a lot of emails about it, and it was getting more and more attention. I was on a lot of television shows talking about it. And when I was on the television shows, I would have people booing me and saying I was crazy and I needed a psychiatrist. And that didn't stop me, because I knew I wasn't crazy, and I knew that this was a real problem and a real issue that really had to be addressed. So I opened a website about genetic sexual attraction. The website is a form of support group, and it's still been going for many years. There's a lot of people, once they get onto the website, they'll say, I'm so glad that there's this website, because I never knew there was anything like this out there, and I thought I was the only one. So they're very relieved to see that there are other people that share these feelings, and that they're not insane.
I've been on the GSA forums, and it's amazing. I mean, the stories that you can read and know that we're not the only people living or feeling these things. There are so many other people, and it's comforting, and it's a support group, just like a support group for anything else, any other subject. And it's just really, it's nice to have some place where you can go that there are people that can share, and you can share with them and be accepted. What do I love about Alex? Everything. His personality, the way we get along, the way he listens, how he helps me express myself more rather than shut down. He's funny. He likes my pets. It is really important, and likes having them in the house and in my bed, which some people don't like animals in their beds. You meet after being separated, and there's this huge bond or connection. You want to say, like the soulmate idea, I guess, that you feel like you know that person.
Pau is in Chili geboren. Ze is als baby geadopteerd en opgegroeid in Amerika. Als tiener werd ze herenigd met haar biologische familie en werd ze verliefd op haar halfbroer Alex, die Chili verliet om bij haar in Seattle te zijn.
I actually really made a pretty big sacrifice, leaving a pretty decent job for that country that he lives in, and coming to America without knowing the language. I wasn't sure. I thought, it's possible that he comes and to be with me, and that I think, oh no, I can't do this. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change when he comes. It doesn't change that he's still not my brother to me, and he never will be.
Adopted people have never been like anybody in their family, because they were raised in a family that doesn't have the same genes, so they don't have the same likes and dislikes in many cases. Now they found somebody that likes to do everything just like they like to do it. And it's such a wonderful feeling for them that the first term I always hear from them, it's my soulmate, I found my soulmate. Now they wouldn't have felt that person was their soulmate had they been raised together. That's my brother, that's my sister, that's my mother, that's my father. But here it's been that big piece that's been missing in their whole life, and now they feel whole for the first time.
This is John, my father and my partner, Alexander, my son, Samantha, my daughter, Celeste, my daughter and sister, and I'm Jenny. It was just an instant attraction. It was like a wow factor.
I met a beautiful, attractive woman. To me, Jenny wasn't my daughter, and like Jenny said, we became soulmates.
Welkom terug bij Reportage. In de meeste landen is het niet toegestaan om te trouwen met een familielid. Laat staan om kinderen te krijgen met je vader, broer of dochter. Want hoe dichter bij de bloedverwantschap is, des te groter is de kans op erfelijke afwijkingen.
This is John, my father and my partner, Alexander, my son, Samantha, my daughter, Celeste, my daughter and sister, and I'm Jenny. When I was around a year old, Mum and John divorced, and I didn't have any contact with John, so John didn't bring me up as a child. At the age of 32, I decided that it was time to make contact with my father, and more to find out who I was as a person, but also because I had two little children that I felt needed to know their grandfather. And it was just an instant attraction. It was like a wow factor.
I met a beautiful, attractive woman. To me, Jenny wasn't my daughter, because I hadn't seen her, as Jenny said, since she was one. And like Jenny said, we became soulmates.
It just seemed so right.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe a couple of months after we'd sort of been together that we started to really discuss what the consequences of our relationship was, and really start to discuss the fact that we were father and daughter, and that to most of society it was incest, and that we could be charged for it.
De ware aard van John en Jenny's relatie kwam pas aan het licht toen ze kinderen kregen.
Some choose to consummate and some don't. I don't know.
Don't know.
For us, it was never really a choice, was it? It was just something that the relationship progressed and it just happened.
It just happened, yeah.
We found ourselves in that situation. Have there been a lot of people that say we shouldn't have... Have there been a lot of people that say we shouldn't have children?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a word. Celeste has been a godsend to us. To me, the highlight of my life was watching Jenny give birth.
I have to write a poem tonight about the Good girl, you went that hard. Good girl. Harky, look.
Parent-offspring and sibling matings are the worst possible. And in almost all systems, if that occurs, the offspring will be, they're not guaranteed to be deformed, but they will almost certainly suffer some level of problems and will be, they're usually backward, they usually have mental problems, and they often have reduced growth. There are a whole suite of characters that are associated with inbreeding depression that you see in animals, whether they're humans or, even down to plants or whatever. All organisms seem to suffer this problem when they inbreed very closely.
It's possible to screen for all kinds of carrier status now. There are various tests that are on the market. One that has been launched recently by a company called Council will examine you for about 100 recessive traits, tell you what your carrier status is, so that if you and your partner are tested, you can determine whether you are concordant for anything and therefore whether your children are going to be at risk. Once you get on to more complex genetic effects on disease, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, the big killers, it would be hard to predict what exactly the consequences of being born to an inbred relationship might be there, though they will almost certainly not be good.
In 2007, als Celeste bijna een jaar oud is, blijkt dat John en Jenny eerder een baby hebben verwekt die overleden is aan een aangeboren hartafwijking. Op de forums verdedigt Jenny zich. Ze toont aan dat de dood niet het gevolg van inteelt was, maar van gebrekkig medisch advies over hartafwijkingen in de familie van vaderskant. Veel andere GSA-stellen willen geen risico nemen en krijgen geen kinderen.
As of right now, if I were to decide that I want to have kids, I wouldn't choose to have my own kids with Alex because I'd be scared of the abnormalities. And if I could find a doctor that could really help me look at the genetic stuff and the biological stuff and really explain to me how it all works and what the risks are. But my goal isn't to just, oh yeah, let's have a baby and if it has abnormalities, so what? No, I don't want to have a baby with abnormalities. It's not fair to anyone.
We took all the precautions we could. Had all the tests done we could. Celeste is 2 years old. She's a healthy, beautiful little girl. There is absolutely nothing wrong with her, is there?
No.
In Engeland is incest altijd strafbaar volgens de wet, of het nou met instemming van beide partners gebeurt of niet. Christina Blacklaws is als juriste gespecialiseerd in familierecht.
It's really important that we distinguish what is effectively child abuse and what is consensual incest arising out of genetic sexual attraction. And the law does that, certainly in the UK, by ensuring that it's a maximum of 14 years for sexual abuse of a child by a family member. Genetic sexual attraction leading to incest between adults has a maximum of 2 years. Of course, in many countries in Europe and across the world, consensual intercourse between adults from the same family is not illegal. And in fact, in recent years, in countries such as Argentina, Brazil and Japan, they have decriminalized incest.
Sean Gelb is directeur van de Libertaire Alliantie. Die vindt dat de staat zich niet via wetgeving met persoonlijke relaties moet bemoeien.
There is a general belief that the children of incest are often rather strange. And that may be the case. But on the other hand, there are many other kinds of sexual relationship which may produce offspring with a higher chance of birth defects. Should we, for example, stop people from conceiving children when the woman's above the age of, shall we say, 37? Because once you get past the age of 37, certainly past the age of 40, the chance of birth defects does increase substantially. Now that would be a monstrous breach of human rights. This is a matter of consenting adults. We're not talking here about approving of or tolerating or legalizing sexual predation of a parent on a child. We're talking purely about the choices made by consenting adults. I think at the moment it's illegal by default. If there were a public debate, it would be decriminalised maybe in an afternoon or an amendment to the Criminal Justice Act or something. I don't think most people like it, but I don't think most people believe that the state should go after people doing it.
In 2007 wordt John en Jenny Deeves incest ten laste gelegd. Samantha, Alexander en Celeste worden 3 weken onder tijdelijke voogdij geplaatst.
Yeah, I remember when the cops came, that was in 2007. That was really scary. How did it happen? We woke up one morning and we're doing the normal stuff, you know, and next thing we know there are cops on our doorsteps, you know, saying you're under arrest, and, you know, we sort of broke down and got really upset and sort of mainly more panic more than anything, that we didn't know what was happening next, you know, and then we got put in the cars and taken down to the police station.
And all of a sudden all these police cars come screaming up the driveway and paddy wagons and stuff, and coppers jump out and detectives jump out, and they asked a few questions and there was much yelling, screaming and abuse levelled at everyone, and the outcome of it all was they arrested us on the spot and charged us with incest.
Who alerted the authorities?
My sister.
Yeah, John's sister.
She fired the gun, but other people made the bullets. Jenny's mother was one of the ones that made the bullets. My ex-wife was the other one.
The kids were taken to the police station with us, and remembering Celeste was only a young baby at this stage, still being breastfed. They were removed by Families SA and put in with a foster carer.
That was really scary and very shocking, very hard. But that's definitely a memory that probably won't go away. You can push it to the back of your head, but it's never going to go away, sort of thing.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, a little bit, but not all that much. It's really a thing that you just like to forget.
Families SA only had the children for 3 weeks. They did abuse reports on the children, found that there was no need to hold the children, that there was no abuse upon them. They gave the children back to me.
Everybody expects us to be something we're not. You know, everybody expects us to be screwed up because of the environment we come from. But it's actually totally different. We're more mature than other sort of teenagers.
Would I consider moving? No.
A lot of people I talk to do.
Yeah.
But that's running away.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to run away. I want people to acknowledge it. I want changes made or research done. If I ran away, I wouldn't be being true to GSA, really. And I don't think it's going to change. Running away is not going to change. It's not going to take away all the hurt and the pain and everything that you've gone through. Nothing's going to do that. You've just got to make choices to either stay in the relationship and live your life legally and still love each other, or separate completely and move on and try and have a life outside. For us to move on and have a separate life would be far too difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know, we continue our life together. I wouldn't even consider having a relationship with my stepbrothers or my stepfather. They were my family. They brought me up. That disgusts me. But I never had that bonding with John. And that is what GSA is about, and that is the large difference between GSA and incest. There's no initial bonding as a child.
It's not incest. It's a totally different thing. With incest, you have a victim, and, you know, with GSA, you don't. It's consensual. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Ron Burlingham is 64 als hij wordt herenigd met zijn zuster. Al snel blijkt dat hij dingen voor haar voelt die hij niet had verwacht.
I did take to her immediately, you might say. But of course it dawned on me that this wasn't what you would call a natural feeling for a sister. The emails that I began to write to her became more and more personal. And you could say I perhaps began to bombard her with emails, but there's no question at all they were love letters. I went over to Bermuda, staying with her. She used to go off to work each morning, and I found myself just sitting around waiting for her to come back. And she'd come back and I'd take off her shoes and put on her slippers. And looking back at it now, it struck me as perhaps a little bit hyper-attentive. I was no longer able to hide my utter misery. I was just in turmoil. It got to the stage where it jeopardized my relationship with my sister. And it worried me, and it worried me more and more.
Ron komt in contact met Barbara Gagno, die hem leert omgaan met de seksuele gevoelens die hij voor zijn zus heeft.
It wasn't one day there was my GSA and the next day it was all gone. It was a gradual process. The people who manage to get through it, if they've been really very deeply drawn in, are, I think, few and far between. But I did manage to get through it. I'm sometimes regarded by Barb Gagno as one of her star pupils because I did manage to get through this. And so we've got the thing onto a normal basis. She's now my sister.
De GSE-gemeenschap is de laatste jaren zichtbaarder geworden. Barbara's forum wordt maandelijks meer dan 14.000 keer bezocht en het gevoel dat er een GSE-gemeenschap bestaat is sterker dan ooit. De anonimiteit van de forums stelt mensen met GSE-gevoelens in staat om openhartig met anderen te praten die zulke dingen voor het eerst ervaren.
I think I'm in love with my son. I'm trying to make excuses to be with him and feel guilty and torn on my partner as I think he is jealous. We love each other and I know it's not right. I need help. I only feel like me when I'm with him. And then they answer back and forth to each other, giving their opinions, trying to be supportive. Like I said, once you get on here, you could be on here for hours. I didn't know it would get this big. And it's good. And that's why I keep it going. Otherwise, I don't know where they'd go.
There's another lady here saying how thrilled she is to have found this site, and she thanks them with every fibre of her being, because so many people out there need support with this. But I just pray that public awareness and this kind of forum where people can get together and support each other will help to move things forward in a positive way.
Since we have found out about GSA, because John and I really weren't aware of GSA until we were charged, and then we started, we knew that we weren't the only ones out there, but then we started really searching the internet and we found Barb Gonyo's site, and that changed our life, because we really started to realise we weren't the only ones. There were people out there to talk to. Has been our real saviour, and that has allowed us to move on with our relationship, hasn't it? And rebuild and go back to where we sort of should be. We can still keep our family unit. We can still love each other. We can still be close, but we can do it legally. Yeah. And we can live together legally. Yeah. And it works for us.
Internet heeft het geadopteerde mensen makkelijker gemaakt om hun familie op te sporen zonder professionele hulp.
Now that they can search so easily, they don't think they need a support group. They just want to go and they just want to find. But they don't want to have anybody tell them that they might have a problem or an issue or what could possibly happen. So we really need to get back to the old-fashioned support group where people meet while they're searching, after they search. And nobody's ever telling them there could be some issues here. And even if you know about the issues, it doesn't mean it's going to make it not happen. But at least you've got some warning, If there's a big hole there, I want somebody to, and I'm going to take a walk, I want somebody to tell me there's a hole there, they can at least walk around the hole. But if nobody tells me, I'm going to fall in.
De GSA-gemeenschap is het er wel over eens dat wetswijzigingen op het gebied van adoptie en conceptie GSA een stuk zichtbaarder zullen maken.
It's going to rise.
What with adoption, divorces, IVF, teen pregnancies is another one. It's going to rise, and it's going to rise quite dramatically, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years. I think you're going to see a huge increase.
And it's going to happen a lot more with the sperm donation people, but unless they open up those records too, so that people will know if they're meeting a brother or sister too, or do something about the way they're doing sperm donations, because you can be related to an awful lot of people. This can't stay still. We've got to be talking about this. We got to get this out here, because now I know there's a lot of them out there. A lot of them aren't going to talk about it because they're ashamed.
That's why I'm calling out for further GSA people. I want you all to stick your head out there. Get out there and stand up and be counted.
Welkom terug bij Reportage. In een aantal Amerikaanse staten, waaronder Florida, mag je trouwen met een familielid. In dit geval met een neef of nicht. Ook in Nederland kan het, maar onomstreden is het niet. Elk jaar gaan er wel stemmen op om deze neef- en nichthuwelijken te verbieden. Ouders en kinderen, grootouders en kleinkinderen, broers en zusters mogen overigens nergens ter wereld met elkaar trouwen. De laatste jaren is het aantal stellen dat is veroordeeld vanwege een incestueuze relatie toegenomen.
Including us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 come to mind that have been in the last year and a half, worldwide. Yeah. 2 in the UK.
Yeah. 1 in Germany.
1 in Germany, us. The New Zealand one.
The Northern Territory couple.
Oh no, they're not counted. The New Zealand one, the New Zealand that's coming up is 7.
Yeah. Well, I was counting the Northern Territory couple.
No.
Okay, so 7.
I'm still missing someone. All right, let's say 7 or 8.
Hoewel het GSA een groeiend probleem is er heel weinig over bekend. Dr. Greenberg kon voor de studie die hij in 1995 deed met slechts 8 stellen praten die een GSA-relatie hadden.
The reason that is because it's so difficult to get anybody to come forward to tell their story. Because they're in hiding. So many people are in hiding. They don't want to be in hiding, but they feel they have to be or they'll go to jail.
And it'll ruin their families.
Well, that too, yeah.
You know, if their families don't know about it, then their families will find out, and it's too big a risk. Say, but I'm the only one that'll stand up and say anything. That's why I'm calling out for further GSA people. You know, I want you all to stick your head out there. Get out there and stand up and be counted. Having a good rock?
I think genetic sexual attraction needs to come out more out into the open, much like the gay movement did.
Needs to be more recognised.
Years ago.
People wouldn't dream of now saying, well, you're going to be put in jail or given a sentence for having a relationship with someone of the same sex. But of course things have changed and they've progressed, and I think genetic attraction is well overdue for a full review.
This can't stay still. We've got to be talking about this. We got to get this out here, because now I know there's a lot of them out there. A lot of them aren't going to talk about it because they're ashamed. But it's there, and it has to be talked about.
If we had known about it and we had been prepared, then, yeah, I don't know, it wouldn't have...
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been so hard.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't have been so hard, I don't think.
Als GSA meer bekendheid krijgt, kan dat zorgen voor minder gevallen. Velen zien open adoptie als mogelijke oplossing van het probleem.
A child would never lose their name. They would never lose contact with their family. They would have a new mom and dad and live in a new home, but they'd have visitation with their original family. There'd be no sealed records, no loss of heritage.
Siblings should know each other as they're growing up. I don't care if they're raised in 3 different families, they should all know each other. And they should be able to play together now, not later in bed. They gotta play when they're kids.
Op dit moment houdt de GSA-gemeenschap een vinger aan de pols via Barbara Gonjo's forums en counselingsdiensten. Hier praat ze met Ruth in Londen.
There's no betrayal of trust. It was a beautiful, loving relationship, and I love him. I love him now as a family member. When we've moved on, we've had to. But actually, we'd like to have been together forever. We weren't harming anybody.
She's trying to fill me in on her whole problem in one conversation, which is kind of hard. And people do that a lot. They'll come, first time they call you, they'll just tell you everything and you hardly get a chance to break in. But hopefully she'll keep in touch, and I think it'll help, because she's really in a lot of pain.
We wrote many letters to each other across the water. Pages and pages of letters and poems, and the separation was so hard. Every day I want to ring you. Sometimes at lunchtime say, I think I'd love to ring now, but I can't. I can't even ring tonight because I shouldn't ring too often and be accused of something. I chat endlessly in my working day about various things, all quite useful and interesting or amusing or reflective. But there are always the little spaces through which I can see you and miss you.
What would you say to people who would say, disagree with your relationship?
It's their right to disagree.
Yeah.
It takes all sorts to make the world go round.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, I mightn't agree with something else someone else does, but who am I to say? It's their life, it's my life. We're consenting adults and we're not hurting anybody,
No,
so
that's right.
just let us get on with our life, basically. We'll leave them alone if they leave us alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you want to marry him one day, do you think? If I could marry him, yes, I would definitely would love to marry him. I would love to be able to tell everyone, not necessarily tell, oh, I'm brother and sister, but be open about a relationship and be able to get excited and, to just tell about my happiness and about my relationship with Alex. No one should be able to tell you what you can or can't do if you're not hurting anyone. I mean, no one can tell you who you can or can't love.
And I feel ready now to stand my ground, really, regarding this, and speak up about how it has been, because there's so much prejudice and ignorance around this whole subject. People are shocked and horrified, but really it's just a very sad human story.
It could happen to you. You never know it could happen to you. You could someday find out that someone in your family had an affair that you didn't know about, and you have a sibling out there or something, and all of a sudden they pop up in your life. And if you're probably saying right now, that would never happen to me. I would never do anything disgusting like that. But you never know unless you've been there. So unless you've walked in somebody's shoes, be gentle.
Tot zover deze reportage. Volgende week zijn we er weer met een opmerkelijke documentaire. Voor nu, bedankt voor het kijken. Een hele goede nacht. En graag tot volgende week zondag.